Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel and Cedarbrook Park Zoo. Now say hello to Penguin Point, a little penguin habitat with some fairly large shoes to fill. Now as we are working with penguins, the first step, as always, is really to kind of terraform some earth. Now I started out by digging out some space for our deep water exploration area, and the plan was to have this gentle curved basin that would allow our guests to view into the habitat over this really cool water feature. Now, this also actually acts as a natural barrier for our penguins, and with the view coming from only this one direction, it allows me to focus the entire build on only really having to appease the view. Now, to help add some realism to the build, I did add some concrete panels to help hide the terraforming gaps on the sides, and I really kind of enjoyed creating this slanted approach that really added a little bit of extra flavor to the build. Now, because we have this natural curved basin for our water feature, I also utilized some additional concrete panels to help hide all of the terraforming deformations and allow for a smoother transition from our pathing to the habitat. Now, with this initial step completed, I really wanted to build another new guest barrier for our new habitat. So I started off with this Arctic beam to act as the base. Now, this thicker wood piece can be useful because if it sticks out, it's going to look okay. Now on the habitat side, it also adds a wooden edge, which softens the transition from concrete to barrier. Now I did add the metal banding, which in an effort to reduce total piece counts, comes with its own rivets already added in. Then we layered a marquee beam that acts as our connecting edge where the glass is secured to the base, and I also use our trusty fence posts, which add an additional added realism to the barrier. Finally, to add some oceanic flair to the build, I used these tribal wood pieces and adjusted the color to be a bit more water-like, which really just focuses on all the blue colors to remind me of deep water. Now, with our barrier set up, I wanted to go in and hide the concrete panels at the front of our habitat, and this actually works twofold. Realistically, having just concrete doesn't really keep with the theme of creating this lifelike habitat for our penguins. And really, it also adds some character to the underwater section, which is going to be even more important down the road. Now, this also removes that generic repeating look, and plus, really no one likes a flat surface. Now, to help create the sense that this is not really a man-made structure, I utilized the random rotation option, and this all really just keeps the pieces looking a little bit different every time you place them. Now, initially, I'll be the first person to admit, this kind of looks a little bland, but it is part of a multi-step process that I actually feel works really well. Now, to help make sure the rock fits in, I also modified the colors to a lighter green and a darker brown gray that really just gives the idea of algae-infused rocks. Now, I'm a huge fan of taking a step back to look at your work, and I will admit, when I took a step back to look at this, I wasn't really happy with the way the barriers were set up. So off screen, I do go back and just soften the entire edges, and you'll see that in the final build. Now, I really wanted to have this unique feature in this habitat that would be eye-catching and really draw in a lot of guests. When you think of going to a zoo, you want to see something that's going to be really cool, really unique, and not really emulated anywhere else. So I thought of creating this really cool land bridge for all of our little penguins to explore. So again, I utilized the faux rock arches, which just adds an underwater tunnel and acts as our bridge. I also added a few pieces to the top to flatten it all out and had the initial framework for a fun little engaging area. Now, the second step of creating a more unique rock wall and water feature really comes back to foliage. For me, I started off by sinking some rocks to break up the flat surface, and I actually used a trick of creating one build piece. Now, with this one build piece set up, I placed our rocks using the random rotation feature, and then just really sunk everything into the ground. Using this method, I really don't have to worry about sinking in each individual piece, which really can be quite time consuming, and afterwards I could just go back and adjust and modify individual parts as needed. It's actually a really quick and dirty way of making this rock ground. Next, I placed some of our underwater grass and switched to eelgrass. Now, I'm a huge fan of eelgrass, as I like to think that this would grow in every rock and crevice it could find. And with this completed, we have our working water feature. Now, with that being said, I do end up going back in and adjusting a few of the different things off camera, mostly just adding a more gentle slope to the water bank and allowing a more gradual descent into the water. Now, when I think of penguin habitats, I imagine these really cool rock shelves with little ways for penguins to kind of explore and nest in. So I attempted to build this in-game by creating this really awesome two-story explorable rock feature. Again, I relied a lot on the faux rocks for this build, and I feel it fits with the theme of penguin habitats. Now, with the rough framework set up, I built up a rough stairway and began to kind of blend everything together with all these other rocks, creating a roof, creating a floor, and whatnot. Now, I gotta say, the rock doors are probably the most amazingly underutilized piece for me, something that I think I fixed with this build, creating something I'm really happy with and is fully navigatable by our little penguins. Now, normally when I build, I try to record everything. And then from this recording, I'll pare down, remove a lot of stuff that just doesn't make any sense, or, maybe the build is just a little too generic, or, it's the small details that I really don't think are valuable for people. My idea of creating a speed build is creating something that's going to help people to improve their own builds, or maybe provide a little bit of inspiration, because everybody needs inspiration from time to time. And that's my hope with these speed builds. Now, to that end, I always record my stuff. But I made a mistake in this build. And what I mean by that is I started working on our backstage area, had this really cool concept set up, and I had totally forgotten to hit the record button. And by the time I had seen this and I went in to go and start recording, I had built everything. There was a few small minor details, but it just didn't really make sense for us to kind of put this together that way. So to that end, you're not going to see a speed build of our backstage area. Now that's okay. I don't think backstage areas are too involved. For me, I'm trying to go with this like hyper realistic zoo, and I think that I'm getting closer to that. But in most normal cases, you don't really have this crazy backstage area, and I think it's okay. Now, that being said, I do want to talk a little bit about these videos and these speed builds. And I'm actually looking for your feedback, and hopefully you'll put it in the comments below and just let me know what you look for in a speed build. I do this for fun. It helps me to improve what I'm building in Planet Zoo. And on top of that, I love animals. Who doesn't love animals? Especially when you play Planet Zoo the way you do. So knowing that, let me know what you look for in a speed build in the comments below. This will help me to shape what I'm putting together for you guys. And it'll also help me to improve my overall builds, because that's what's really important to me. I just want to make sure I'm really building these really cool, extravagant details when it comes to our habitats. Now, I mentioned it earlier in the video that we're building a habitat with a one viewing station, which is really just the front of the habitat. So everything we build, keeping that in mind. So when we build it, we want to make sure that it's viewable from that direction. And really, it only has to look good in that direction as well. So to that end, we've created two additional rock features. One is this really vast, big back wall, and we incorporated some additional archways and a lot of foliage to kind of break it up. And then the other one is this rock plateau. And the idea behind it is, little penguins are found on the coast. So I wanted to create something that would kind of marry sand and dirt and kind of breaks up all of this, these sand dunes and whatnot. So to that end, I created this really cool rock outcropping, lined it with a lot of foliage to kind of blend it in, and I'm actually really happy with how it kind of came together. I also use a few mangrove trees to kind of hide and mask some of the areas. There's a lot of open areas on this build, so we just want to make sure that it looks a little bit filler, and then added in some additional foliage. Now, one thing I will call out is that final area on the back wall is a little off-putting. A lot of the foliage at the very top looks very repeated, because it really only goes in one direction with those particular plants. So I do go back in and kind of layer some additional different color plants, kind of break everything up and add additional features to it. Now I'm really excited with the final product that I've put together, and I again hope that this helps you to build your own little penguin habitats in the future. That is ultimately the goal here. With the interior of our habitat finally completed to an extent, it's really time for us to work on the exterior. The big thing here is there's a lot of empty space on the exterior. We've built this habitat on the back end of our Tasmanian exhibit, and that leaves a very long corridor for guests to travel down. So in an effort to kind of cover this up, I thought about utilizing some really cool education signs. To start off with, I did take our giraffe education sign from Oasis Zoo and just started to repurpose it, made it a bit smaller as we don't necessarily need something as big as what it was, and really enjoyed kind of putting these new penguin signs. I'm always a huge fan of when Planet Zoo adds in these penguin signs, because it gives you a lot of freedom towards building your own education signs. And I don't think I'm really good at it, but I'm really happy with what we've accomplished here. Now, as we come to an end for our speed build, I wanted to share with you guys some changes in how we're going to kind of operate moving forward. Now, when it comes to naming animals, I'm rubbish when it comes to it. I actually never named an animal myself in this game. I find that the names I come up with aren't just as fun or as cool. So as one way to engage within the Discord, so as you may know, we do have a Discord and everybody is welcome to join, and I encourage you to do so. But I did ask for some naming ideas with the theme of food, and I'm really excited to share with you the names that were created. So for our males, we have Taco, Benedict, and Tim Tam, and for our females, we have Melba, French Fry, and Pavlova. I'm really excited about this as it's one way to engage within our community and kind of gives you a little bit more control and say in what's happening within the zoo. Now up next, of course, you know we've done 4 of our animals from the Oceania pack. That leaves us with one left, which is the spectacled flying fox. So I'm hoping that I can get your engagement in deciding the names for our new spectacled flying foxes. So in the comments below, please leave any of your ideas on what you think we should name our newest addition to our zoo, which will hopefully be coming out rather soon. I'm also a really big fan of naming our habitat areas. So if you do have any names for our next habitat, please also feel free to include it in the comments below. Of course, feel free to hit that like button below. It does really help the video to grow and lets me know I'm going in the right direction. And if you're feeling up to it, subscribe. Of course, no pressure. If you don't want to, that's totally cool as well. Now, lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who's joined me on this journey. Couldn't have done it without you. And now I get to say, sit back, relax, and watch some cinematic shots of Penguin Point, our latest addition to Cedarbrook Park Zoo.
Sizowaka